Okay, are we live? It appears as though we are. Let's see. Must confirm before moving on. And cool. We're live on YouTube. Welcome to the Creative Control Room podcast pre-show. Behind the scenes, this is where we go through and ensure that all systems are go before we get into the show. There's a lot that rhymed there. So right now I'm going through all the different social channels, checking to make sure that the live stream is up everywhere it's supposed to be up. And so far it looks good. Okay, so live streams are up. Let's check OBS settings here. Looks like no drop frames. Audio's coming through pretty good. Streaming and recording, fantastic. Sorry to get a little close to the screen there for that. Let's check our camera angles. We got camera 1 right here. We got camera 2 up here. We got camera 3 back here. Twitch is up and running. No, you can't see Tum Tum now, but Tum Tum has also joined us. He is sniffing underneath the door, which means that he probably wants to get out of here. So at some point, I'm going to have to turn around and open up the door for him. Okay, so we got recording in audio, recording in OBS. Let's see. How's my picture look? Picture is a little dark to me, possibly. Let me check my camera setting. 1 sec. That's why my ISO got turned down a little bit. Let's see if that's any better here. Yeah, I think that looks better. Perfect. Cool. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different today. Instead of jumping right into it after this, let's warm up a little bit. It's Sunday. It's Sunday morning. Everyone's probably being lazy today. So I thought what we could do to kind of get the brain juices flowing is play a little game of Wordle. So if you don't like spoilers, you might want to tune out because we're going to play a game of Wordle. So let's start with scour. Is that a word? Okay. All right. Off to a great start. No S, C's, O's, U's, or R's. Let's see what else. If anybody's watching and you have any suggestions, you tell me. Already I'm stumped. Let's try Plant. Okay. Got a little bit more to work with. By the way, if you're watching this and this is not interesting to you at all, you can always skip through. There will be timestamps if you're watching a replay. Otherwise, if you're watching this live, you're just gonna have to bear with me here. Okay, we got a P and an N to work with. Do we think the P is at the beginning of the word? What comes after a P normally? P. Don't have an S, don't have a T. P, E. Let's see. What do we got? P. I know we don't have a C, but pence is that? Actually, I don't know why I did that because the P doesn't. I think this is why we needed to do this because my brain's not ready yet. So the P can't be in the beginning, but I put it back in the beginning anyway and tried out some additional letters. And I used 2 E's. Why would I use 2 E's in the same word when I'm trying to get more letters in? Anywho, all right, let's start with an N and see where that gets us. So we don't, the only vowels we have is an I. and possibly a Y. Yep, there goes Tum Tum. Hold on. All right, go. Be gone. I don't think N is the first letter. I feel like it has to be, the first two letters have to be like two consonants, like a P and an R. Pr, or obviously those wouldn't work, but you know what I'm saying. Because we only have one letter to work with. What about N-I? Okay, I'm just gonna try night. I know T is not in there. Well, shoot, because P's not in there either. Nope, that can't work. Just trying to get some more letters here. We don't have an S, we don't have a C, we don't have a T. So like TH, SH, CH, that's not going to work. Huh. Is this good content? I hope so. Here, I'll switch angles just for a little bit of diversity there. Okay. So I'm a little bit stumped here. All we have is a P, an N, and most likely an I on the vowel side. You know, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do night just to see if we got... Okay, so cool. Wow. All right. So now we have an N, H. We have no vowels. A, E, I, O, and U are all out. So really all we have is a Y. Okay, possibly a PH. So if we do NY, nymph. Wow. Okay, we pulled that out. Nymph. All right. Well, there you go. Wordle for the day is nymph. Don't tell anyone. But there's your spoiler for Wordle. Okay, so we've done our checks. Oh, let's go back to here. Perfect. All right, we've done all our checks. We're recording everywhere. Audio and video seems to be looking good. We finished our Wordle. And we got some stuff to talk about today. So I think we're ready to just jump right into it. So let's do that, shall we? Where's my button? Gosh, it's been too... Okay, here we go. Ready?
This is the Creative Control Room Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers where my goal is to help you make to the max.
Hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Creative Control Room. I am your operator, Ryan Hafey. And this is episode 103 for Sunday, March 27th. And I haven't been here for a couple weeks. We'll talk a little bit about why that is. Really, it just comes down to partly being busy and partly being a little bit creatively burnt out. And before, when I would beat myself up about missing episodes, I'm trying to be less emotional about it and just kind of, you know, when I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to force it because then that makes things less interesting and entertaining for everyone else. But got a few things to talk about. But before we get into the topics at hand for today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button wherever you happen to be watching or listening, and follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as well. If you are new to the podcast here, this is my Creative Control Room. This is where I talk about all things photography, video, live streaming, podcasting, FPV on occasion, film photography, as we'll be talking about today, kind of everything in between, as well as all the projects I happen to be working on. So I just kind of come in here every week, or normally every week, and try to just share as much knowledge as I can to help you make to the max. Also, we are using a different camera lens today, so I'm actually a little bit more zoomed in than I normally would be. We got Robert in the chat, Real Chicago. What's going on, Robert? But instead of using this guy, which is the lens that I usually have on my A6500. This is a Rokinon 12 millimeter cine lens. I've got my 16 to 35. You probably can't see that there, but it's a 16 to 35 millimeter Sony G Master. Now, A6500 is a crop sensor, so a 16 to 35 at 16 millimeters more like 24 millimeter versus the 12 millimeter on that camera, which would be more like 16 millimeter with the crop factor. So had to zoom in a little bit, but I also wanted to kind of take advantage of some of the zoom. You know, it's going to follow me. You know, the autofocus, or not zoom, autofocus is going to be a little bit better here. So we're going to see how this goes. But also the reason that I put that on there is because I'm starting to ease back into making videos a little bit. I had some kind of grander plans of making some longer form, 10 or so minute videos, but I want to ease back into things. I've learned that I've gone so long without making fresh YouTube content that I sort of have lost my process for making the longer form stuff. But I also consider myself pretty good at making the shorter form stuff and kind of taking a lot of information, condensing it down into a few minutes and sharing that. And I can do that fairly quickly, fairly efficiently, and create what I consider to be a good instructional or educational video. So where was I going with that? I don't know. There we go. So I put this lens on it because I have this Parrot teleprompter, which actually just slips on the end of your lens. I'm going to be doing some scripted stuff, but the 12 millimeter, because it has no zoom and it's super wide, can't put this on there because it will you'll show the edges of the prompter. And even if I have this lens all the way zoomed out and I put it on, you'll still see it a little bit, but I can zoom in just slightly on that, still be fine. So that's why I've got that lens on there. Okay, so let's talk first about, let's go over some updates. So one of the things that I talked about, I think it was the last episode, was the Razer Blade 17 gaming laptop that I purchased. It's kind of a wish list item for me for this year, and luckily I was able to pick it up sooner rather than later. Had some time to play with it. The last episode I did was just kind of some initial thoughts about it. But since playing with it a little bit more, and by the way, this is I just dropped my power cord. This is a laptop. It is not small by any means, but one of the issues that I had with it last time, because it has it as far as charging goes, it has a proprietary charging port right there, and I guess like with a MacBook, you could plug in an external charger into the MacBook and it would help charge that. This thing requires a lot of juice, a lot of power, and I was trying to figure out if there was any way to power it with some kind of external charger or anything like that, and or if Razer could recommend one. So I reached out to customer service over at Razer, and what they told me was your model has Thunderbolt ports, which support USB-C charging. However, your laptop is big and requires a lot of power. It comes with a 280 watt power adapter. The USB-C ports charge only. USB-C chargers only provide 100 watts max, so still not enough to charge or be used the laptop to operate properly. So, in other words, I basically have to carry around this big charger with me at all times if I want to use this thing for longer than a couple hours doing intensive work like video editing and things like that. I did, however, I did some experimentation. I have an external power bank that I tried to plug into it to charge it, and got a warning on there that said it's not receiving enough juice to charge. But I also have a 65 watt wall adapter, which was delivering some charge to one of the USB-C ports, and I didn't get that warning, but I have to imagine that it's not going to be charging it consistently. So if I'm doing a bunch of heavy lifting on the editing side or whatever, I imagine it's probably going to still draw more than it's charging. So again, that's kind of a downside if you like sort of portability and you don't like to have to charge your laptop and you want to just be able to take it with you and go sit down in a coffee shop, whatever it may be. So that was one of the annoyances. Again, not a huge issue for me because I bought this with the purpose of being able to do intensive work like that. And I know this is going to require a lot of battery. So anyway, also a thing I don't like about it is the touchpad is annoying on the laptop. I've tried tweaking the sensitivity on it. And it, sometimes it'll think I'm double tapping when I'm not, and just kind of weird things. So I actually bought a little, just a mouse. This is Logitech Pixie or something like that. I forget Pebble. Logitech Pebble i345. Just a tiny little mouse that I could take, if I travel. Got left click, right click, scroll. That's really all I need in most cases. And connects via Bluetooth, works pretty well. I actually tried connecting the Magic Mouse, the Apple Magic Mouse, and it works. The problem is you don't get any of the scroll. You basically just get right click, left click, and then that's all you get. You can buy software. That was going to be my other option. You can buy software for PC that allows you to use some of those features of the Magic Mouse on PC, but it's like a yearly subscription. I'm not going to pay a yearly fee for mouse software. I'll just buy a different mouse. So that's where we're at with that. But those are really like my two main gripes with the laptop at this point. Power wise, I have no issues whatsoever. It's pretty comparable to my desktop, which is already pretty powerful. So I'm happy there. One thing that was a little bit annoying is I traveled with it recently, and I guess, I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe there's something in my backpack, like towards the bottom, that was scraping it. Like if I put my bag underneath an airplane seat or whatever, but I took it out, and this is always annoying, like right when you get a new laptop, but along the edges here, on the same side, I must have put it in different orientations, different times, but there was right here, right here, right here, and right here, just little scuffs, enough to kind of reveal what was underneath the black finish on top. So that was super annoying. So for now, I've just it's a little ghetto looking, but I put on some gaff tape on each side of those just to cover those up and also provide a little bit of protection along the edges there. And then I also picked up this thing, which is kind of neat. I mean, it's a little laptop sleeve, but when you open it up, this side here kind of doubles as a mouse pad, so I can put the laptop in here, put this into my bag, and then wherever I am, just take this out, put the laptop on top, use this as a mouse pad, bring my little Logitech mouse with me, and we're good to go. So that's the update on the Razer laptop. Also wanted to talk a little bit just about part of the reason why I wasn't here the last 2 weeks. And I've just been a little creatively uninspired the last couple weeks. It's been hard to get myself to start on projects that I've been putting off for a while, the YouTube stuff being one of them. That's why I was, mentioned I wanted to start doing some shorter form stuff and kind of ease into it a little bit, because I really want to do it. It's one of those things where, you want to do it, but for something's holding you back, something's keeping you from doing it. For me, it's a lot of overthinking, but basically what I'm trying to do at this point, because what I've learned is that my default mode is just kind of sitting around flipping on social media, and I don't like that about myself. It's as if I conform my days or my work around being able to just sort of get back to just mindlessly scrolling. And I pull up my phone constantly. Like I've just sort of formed these habits in my brain to where I'm always checking for notifications. I might walk from here to the restroom and pull out my phone while I'm walking just to take a few seconds to check Twitter or Instagram or check email real quick, and then I'll put it back. And I hate that because it's sort of ingrained in me. And like I've literally I have these motions, like the motion of reaching into my pocket, pulling out my phone, and getting it open as quickly as possible. Like all of that has sort of been just ingrained in me as a habit now, and I'm trying to break that a little bit. So I'm trying to train my brain essentially to not crave social media and the dopamine that comes along with getting notifications and things like that, and just sort of learning to be a little bit more present and not reliant on my phone. You know, I remember I grew up in a small town, cornfield behind my house. You know, you could leave your doors unlocked and just kind of walk around. By the age of 6, I'm wandering around the neighborhood, just going and see it, and if kids could play and, you know, things like that. And I didn't have these sort of connections to social media. I could just run around and sort of do my own thing and not worry about. I use my brain. I could get creative. I had to be creative because we had 5 channels on TV and there was never anything good to watch. And when you live in the country, you have to find ways to entertain yourself. So I would think of things and then go do them. Now, entertainment is all right here. Everything you need to stay entertained is in this little rectangular device. And I feel like it's just sort of sucking away my creative potential. So I recently deleted all social media apps from my phone, with the exception of YouTube. I guess I really don't have a logical explanation for why I left YouTube. Maybe it's just because it's longer form content. But so it worked for a little bit, actually. I found myself not necessarily missing, like, you know, TikTok was the worst for me. TikTok, I could just sit there and scroll for hours. I found myself not really missing them as much, but also watching more YouTube. But I will say I was able to watch more longer form YouTube content, which is, you know, when you're spending a lot of time on TikTok, when everything's a few seconds, I found myself not even having the attention span to sit through a YouTube video. So that was a little frustrating. But I also found myself, it's hard too because I work in social media by day. So when you have to be in that world and you have to be using those apps and those platforms, it's hard to get away from them. But I deleted Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok from my phone. And what I found was I started using loopholes. So it's like, you really got to check that. Okay, let me pull up the Chrome app and I'll just look on Twitter from there. And then I found myself just going back to the Chrome app to scroll through Twitter every now and then. So it's not working out wonderfully, but it has reduced my consumption of social media. And I'm going to continue to try to, figure out ways to prevent myself from doing that more. I know I need to be doing more meditation, just sort of being more with my thoughts a little bit. And I think that's important. So I'm going to try to do that. But that's where I'm at with that right now. We'll see where that goes. And hopefully, if I can continue to avoid social media at the rate that I was using it before, I can maybe get back to doing some of the things that I used to do more of, which is working on creative projects and YouTube videos and things like that. Anyway, so that's that. Let's also, let's actually move on now and talk about the main topic for today, which is film photography. I wanted to talk a little bit about, we've talked about film photography here before, but I think film photography is undervalued in as far as the value that it has with your creative potential. So maybe this is something that I need to spend some time with for a little while to, again, expand my creative horizons. But so I thought first I would show off some of the different film cameras that I have, and then get into some, show some photos as well, and then get into some tips as to how you can use film photography to expand your creative horizons and become a better photographer and better videographer. So I have actually a few different film options here. So let's start with some of the ones that don't work. This is, what is this? This is a Retina 3C by, is this Nikon? No, Kodak. So this is belonged to my grandparents. This is from the 50s. Not even sure what kind of, is this how I open it? I haven't shot this because it doesn't work. I would like to get it restored at some point. But it's got this cool retracting lens. If you push in here, why aren't you working? Oh, it's being weird. Oh, wait, I think that's why. wanted something here had to be like turned. There we go. So you can retract the lens, and then it's this nice little compact thing. Open it back up. Pretty cool looking camera. Doesn't work, but I like this one, and I kind of keep it around as like a little display piece. This is the Kodak Instamatic 1000. This is actually a cool little camera. Again, I forget which camera or which film it takes, but it comes with these replaceable bulbs. These are one-time use bulbs. You actually get daylight balanced or warm colored bulbs, and you kind of see that it has like a bunch of little filaments inside. And yeah, it's a cool little camera, or you can shoot without it if you want to. Up to you. But neat little camera. Haven't shot anything with it yet, but I have flashed some of the bulbs, and it's kind of cool. They're like loud. They kind of pop. A little bit of smoke even. Anyway, cool little camera. Put these back up here. Okay, and then moving on, talk about another camera from within the family. This is the Miranda Auto Sensorex EE is the full name of this film camera here. Again, this used to be belonged to my grandparents. In fact, it's got still a little name plate on the top there. This is a really cool camera because it has one of those removable viewfinders. So you can actually look through the lens and see what's coming through. And then you have the image prism there. Pretty cool little device. This is a full manual camera. It does take a battery that allows you to meter, but recently the metering stopped working for me, so I got to figure out why that is. But it's even got a little self-timer, so this little lever right here, push down, and when you hit the shutter, it'll count down maybe 10 seconds or so. I forget what it is, but what else? Got a 50 millimeter lens. I actually have an adapter to put this on a film camera if I wanted to, or a digital camera if I wanted to. But it's heavy. It just feels good in the hands, and it's really fun to shoot with. And then this is another one. This is the one that I actually have some film in this right now. This is the Canon AE1. This one was made popular in the 1970s. This was the camera that put Canon on the map, apparently. Very popular camera, fun to shoot with. Again, also takes a little battery here that helps with metering, and it's kind of no frills. I bought this lens separate. This is actually a Rokinon lens, third-party lens. This is a 28 millimeter lens because all these film cameras that I have originally came with 50 millimeter, but I wanted a wide-angle lens or a wider angle lens, so picked this up for pretty cheap, and I've been doing some shooting with this. I'll show you some photos from this one in a little bit. And then finally, this one, which I don't think I've put a full roll of film through yet. This is the Pentax MX. This is actually, if you remember from Stranger Things, the show Stranger Things, Jonathan's character had a Pentax camera. There were rumors online that it was a Pentax K1000, but it's actually a Pentax MX, according to an article I saw where a prop director was talking about the Pentax and saying that this is the one it was. So, yeah, it's my fun little film camera collection, and I like it. So let's go through a few film photos here and just kind of give you an idea. This is why I love film. It's a look that you can't duplicate with digital. And I've actually tried. I did an episode on the podcast once where, and I think I'll probably, it's actually the next photo after this one, but I took a film photo and then a similar digital photo and tried to match them, and put a poll out and said, hey, who can you tell which is which? And people were able to figure it out, not necessarily easily, but just goes to show you how difficult it can be to mimic the look of film. And really it comes down to just kind of the texture. Like this is a photo from behind of my daughter. She was playing on her computer, obviously very dark around the outside silhouette of her body there. And it probably doesn't come through super well on YouTube, but there's just all this natural film grain that is hard to reproduce in digital. But let's cycle through some of these. So this was the shot that I tried to reproduce. And this was actually shot on some film that had been expired for a little while. And you can see and it also could be the camera. Like you've got some purple up here, which probably means that there's a little bit of light leak coming in and exposing on the film. But also the super orangish, greenish skin tones is an indication that the film was a little old. And it was. I think I took a number of months off, I think, before I finished this roll of film. But the very cool kind of vintage look to the shots there. This was a shot I took out of a hotel room. I wanted to get some bokeh in the background and focus on the rain water on the window. And I just thought this turned out kind of cool. This was a shot, again, this looks like it was shot in the 70s. But I took this out the window of an airplane taking off. That's Las Vegas in the background there. This is probably one of my favorite shots, shot on film. It was a nice overcast day, which kind of helps with that sort of vintage look. And I've got like kind of the nice warm tones. Sometimes you have happy little accidents when you're shooting film. This is a shot, obviously, of my son from a couple years ago. And what can happen is if you open the back of the camera for whatever reason, it'll obviously expose the film to light. And I guess at some point I took this shot and maybe I needed to inspect something on the camera, open the back of the camera, and exposed half of this shot to some light. So I kind of got this sort of cool little fiery looking thing right down the center of it, and I just thought it ended up looking kind of cool. This is a shot I took on a trail near the house of Las Vegas. Again, a little bit of the purple light leak coming in and vignetting around the sides, which I kind of like in the context of this photo. But just all the colors there look really, really great. And there's no post-processing done to this at all, just some really cool colors. Here's a shot of boxer Chris Areola, heavyweight boxer. Again, just that vintage look, sort of the low contrast, old school style vibe. There's a shot of my friend Nabil, actually it's kind of a selfie and a portrait of Nabil. I'm taking a photo of him inside his glasses there. We got another shot of me. This isn't actually an older shot, but again, another instance of some light leak onto the camera, giving all these sort of orangish tones, but I thought it looked kind of cool. This is actually taken before there's what's called a pressure plate in the back that sort of keeps the film in place, and I didn't realize that was missing for a while, so I took some rolls of film and the focus was off on everything because the pressure plate wasn't keeping the film in the right place. So this one's a little out of focus, but I still kind of like it. Just a little landscape with a biker there. This is my daughter on a vacation from about a year ago or so out to Zion. Cool little shot of her on the front porch there. Another shot out of an airplane window, some big clouds and a sunset in the background. I thought that looked cool. And then I tried my hand at shooting a fight. I obviously did it earlier too, but here's another fight from in the ring. Shooting manual film photography, sports photography is very difficult because the way that I don't even think there's a. Let's try. Hold on. Let me see here. I'm gonna come back here, and then oops. Let me get rid of that. Nope. Turn off. There we go. Nope. Stop. There we go. All right. No, this ain't gonna work, is it? Not at all. But anyway, inside of lenses like these, I'm trying to explain how it works. Like it's sort of as you change your focus, two images kind of slide side to side, and you have to line them up in the center, and you can kind of see it. It's not super apparent, but once you sort of like play with the focus, you can kind of see where the images line up, and then you just have to make sure that you line them up correctly and you get focused. But when you have fighters that are moving around the ring constantly, it's not easy to do that. So I don't know how they would do it back in the day, in the old school days of boxing, but they somehow made it work. But anyway, so those are just some film photos I wanted to show off. And So now I want to talk about how these can help you become more creative, or help you take better photos and videos. So again, as I've mentioned, these particular photos, and I'm sure they make modern day film cameras that are more automatic. But I actually prefer shooting with these older ones just because I like the way they look, but also everything on this is manual, with the exception to a degree of exposure. I mean, you still have to set the exposure manually, but on these particular cameras, you do have the aid of some metering assistance with the battery and everything like that. This one actually has an automatic exposure setting on there. So if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself, you can. But, I'll tell a story like went on vacation recently, and I gave my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, this camera to take a photo with. She has an old Canon T3i. That was kind of like my first like good camera that I ever purchased, and she had an interest in photography, so I gave that to her. And she'll take it around every now and then, take some photos, and obviously it's kind of easy. You just turn it on, and at her age, she just uses the auto settings and goes and snaps away, and it's fun for her. But I tried to talk her through how to take a photo with this, and it was it took her 3 or 4 minutes just to figure it out. I was like, okay, step one, you got to turn it on, make sure you gotta know what you're gonna shoot. All right, step two, you gotta focus on what you're shooting, look inside, and kind of make sure things line up. Okay, and then you got to double check your, now you got to press in the shutter a little bit and look and see where the metering is. Where does it say you should put your aperture and blah, 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 this and that. And it was like 3 to 4 minutes for her to take a single photo. And, you don't have that with digital photography. You can, when I shoot digital, there's obviously a setup time. Taking boxing again, for example, your lighting is all the same throughout the entire fight, so you can take some time to get your exposure settings correct and your white balance and all that, but then everything else is just kind of auto, and all you have to worry about is framing, right? So when you're shooting film, you have to think about every single shot. But not only do you have to think about every single shot and how everything is exposed, you have to think about framing. You have to dial in that exposure correctly. Like there's just so many check boxes you have to check before you can take the photo. Is my aperture correct? Is my shutter speed correct? Do I have my the film ISO setting correctly on there? Is everything in focus? All that kind of stuff. So it just forces you to think through those things, but then also have a better understanding of them because you have to think through them, the aperture and shutter speed and all that, you then will know as a result how those different things affect the final look of your shots. For example, shutter speed. If you take a photo with the slow shutter speed and you see some motion blur, you're like, oh, okay, well, my photos are brighter, but I'm getting more motion blur, so maybe I should increase my shutter next time to get less motion blur. Or aperture, if you use a super small aperture, a lot of stuff's going to be in focus, but maybe you wanted to blur out the background, so you're like, okay, next time I need to open my aperture a little bit more. So you learn these things more and you pay attention to them more versus just using auto settings on a DSLR mirrorless camera where you take the photo and then the value of that final photo to you is in a lot of cases going to be less than it would, the value of a single digital photo is not going to be as high for you as a single film photo because of how much work you had to put in to that film photo. Plus, you also have to wait to get your film photos. Like when you take a film photo, if you're using one of these cameras, you have to wait till you get the thing exposed. You have to fill the roll. You can't look at any of them. You don't know how any of them are going to look. And then once the roll is done, you have to take it to somewhere. They have to process it and then get the photos back to you. In that moment, like every time I take a roll of film in to get developed, I'm always like anxiously awaiting the email or the call, whatever that says your photos are ready, you can pick them up. And I always get the prints and digital. The place that I go to does a good job at scanning the photos, and that's what you saw. But man, yeah, try some film photography. Why are you streaming the population 1 category? Well, J Cherry 85, that's because I forgot to update that before I started the stream, because the last stream I did was in Pop 1. So thank you for pointing that out to me, and I will be updating that. Anyway, that's my discussion on film photography. If you're in a creative slump, ignore my dog. If you're in a creative slump, pick up a film camera. Go even go buy a disposable camera. I mean, that takes the work of the exposure and everything out of it for you, but you still have that delayed gratification. You still have, you still have to think about framing and things like that. But go find yourself a cheap film camera. You can still buy film online, play around with it, and just see how you like it. But anyway, if you enjoyed anything I spoke about today or found any value, it would be great if you could hit that subscribe button wherever you happen to be watching or listening. Also, follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And as always, focus. Thanks for always liking my posts. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. Keep on creating, making, and doing. And we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.